Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. On satellite imagery here, not a lot going on Northeast Pacific on up into the southeast coast. Actually, that's showing Friday. Friday's was a pretty nice day there, and it wasn't too bad there today as well. We had this band of moisture moving on through. And then yesterday's satellite imagery, I don't know what happened to today's, but anyway, clouds out in the west that came through and dropped the snow here east of the Alaska Range tonight, coming through. A trough out through here, really moving very slowly, and the trough axis still back here to the west, even this afternoon, which is a little farther east than it was yesterday, but not much. And out over the Bering Sea, just a lot of cold air, and you can see the area of snow here through the interior on down into the far western Gulf of Alaska. And for tonight, it looks like that trough will be slow to move out, so look for some periods of light snow to continue over the, it'll be slow to end, actually flurries, northern Cook Inlet, a little more extensive up toward Palmer, and that'll extend northward into the Koyukuk Valley and on back to the western Arctic coastal areas. High pressure out over the Bering Sea slowly will be taking over and shifting eastward as this storm system there pushes on to the east. And boy, it looks like I got the wrong set of maps in there. Anyway, North Gulf Coast here, yes, or for today.
Want to call this segment?
Yeah, let's do that, and I'll give you the flash drive. Okay.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining me once again is Eric Stevens from the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, or GINA, based at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Eric, welcome back to the show.
Well, Dave, it's great to be back. Thanks for inviting us again.
Sure thing. And today we want to talk about identifying burn scars. That would be the burned up area after a wildfire when the flames and the smoke are gone. We can see it if you drive by it on the roadway, of course, but from satellite we can also identify those places on the land, right?
You know it. You know that expression, ouch, that's going to leave a mark?
Yeah.
After you bang your knee getting out of the car. You go,
oh yeah.
Well, the ouch, it's going to leave a mark, that also applies to the landscape. Whenever a wildfire ravages through, it's going to leave a mark on the landscape. After a wildfire burns out, this is called a burn scar.
Okay.
And you can ask yourself, well, that's interesting. We can see a burn scar from space. Right. Then the question is, well, why does that matter?
Okay.
Who cares?
Yeah, fire's over.
Right, the fire is over. We don't need to worry about this anymore. It turns out you kind of do, because burn scars are important. There's this old rule of thumb in the weather business that flood follows fire.
Okay.
The action of the fire in killing off the vegetation, in baking, kiln drying the landscape a little bit, can hinder the land's ability to absorb rainfall. So if you have a fire, especially if it's in complex mountainous terrain.
Right.
This is classic in California. It can happen somewhat in Alaska too. You get a wildfire in steep, hilly, or mountainous terrain, rips off all the vegetation off the landscape. Then 6 months later, there's a big rainstorm, and you get a flash flood in that area. So flood can follow fire. That's why you got to know where the burn scars are. Secondly, a fire needs fuel to maintain itself. So if there's an old burn scar left over from a year or two ago, and then another summer later here in Alaska in the interior, it's a big wildfire season. If there's a fire advancing toward an old burn scar, well, guess what? that old burn scars can be tougher terrain for that new fire to get through because there's not as much fuel in that burn scar. So they almost act like a natural fire break. These are a couple of reasons why you need to know where those burn scars are. Alaska Fire Service has limited resources. They want to put their people and their equipment where it does the most good. They need to know, well, this is an area where there's no burn scar. We better put people here because that fire could really run.
So really important for weather forecasters and fire weather forecasters for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But then how do weather satellites actually detect those burn scars?
Ah, good question.
Thanks.
Well, let's turn the Wayback Machine to the summer of 2015. That was a very active year. We've got a picture here taken up in the White Mountains. This is one of the fires in progress that summer, and if you look real close, you can almost see Frodo throwing the ring into the volcano there. So that's quite the vision. Well, let's look at a visible image. Here we are in Alaska's interior. This is before the fires got out of the cage in early summer of 2015. Let's zoom into the western interior here. Again, this is a weather satellite image of visible light, what the human eye can see. We're into the middle reach of the Yukon Valley there in the western interior, Galena area. And this is just a beautiful visible day. Nothing much going on. It's in early June before the fires really got active. But then in 2015, the fires got loose, especially in that western interior. Here's another image. The same satellite pass as that visible image, but now we're not quite looking at visible light.
Very different.
There's a slight change here. This image incorporates something called the veggie band. 0.86 micron wavelength. The micron's very tiny, but that wavelength responds to vegetation, the chlorophyll. So trees and grasses reflect that part of the electromagnetic spectrum back to the satellite. And so the satellite sees that. When signal comes at that wavelength to the satellite, we know, there's some vegetation growing there. This is great. You can identify coastlines so easily because you go from vegetation to water. Turns out if you have a burn scar, guess what? You burned away the vegetation, so that's going to show up. We're going to do a before, during, and after kind of look here. And so we're looking at before. So in this image, we got a lot of green out there. That's wonderful. Another fun thing about this kind of imagery is you can see down in the Alaska Range in the southeast corner of the image, it's blue. That's glaciers and snow in the mountains. So this is not really what the human eye can see. This is these wavelengths are beyond human vision, but we've made them look certain colors. So the vegetation looks green. Now let's look at that same kind of satellite recipe, but during the fires. This is in July. The fires are loose. You can see the smoke in the middle of the image, the smearing look of the smoke, and then we can see some clouds that are white. Icy clouds are blue. So this is in July of 2015. The fires are doing their thing. We're burning up millions of acres. Now let's go to September. The fires are out. The audience has left the theater. You know, the event's over, right? We're done. But guess what? Now look at those brown patches. All of those places are where the fire has burned away the vegetation. So you can see where the fires were. You can add up these perimeters, get acreage burned and such. And so that's good to know. Now remember, flood follows fire, and these are also natural fire breaks. So you need to know where these guys are. In the course of the 2015 summer season, we went from before with not much burn scar in this area to just a couple months later, we can see so much burn scarring on the landscape. What's interesting too about the satellite and looking at burn scars is you realize that burn scars are the gift that keeps on giving. You can forget that a couple of years ago maybe there was a fire in a certain area, but the satellite won't forget. So in the summertime we get wildfires in Alaska, but guess what? In the visible imagery here we can see the burn scars just a little bit, but they're not as prominent as in that veggie band. But then you can't see them at all if you cover them up with snow, right?
Exactly.
So here's an image from the middle of the winter time, and snow on the ground by this recipe looks blue. Again, these are wavelengths of light that the human eye can't really see. We're getting up into the infrared, near infrared, and the way we've assigned colors is if there's snow on the ground or there's a glacier, it looks blue, kind of intuitive. So this is early April of the following year, 2016. We're just about to get into breakup. We've got a lot of snow on the ground, and now it's all going to melt. And as the snow melts, then you get our final image here. Doesn't this look familiar? This looks like a lot of what we saw in September of the previous summer. So this is the spring of the next year. The fires themselves might not have overwintered, they're gone, but the fire scar does. And as the snow melts away, and then you have breakup, and then you have green up, whenever the leaves come out, the grass comes back, except in the burned areas, they're having a tough time because everything got burned off the previous year. So you can see these scars even the next summer, multiple years. It depends on what kind of vegetation there is. You know, some of the tussocky tundra grasses, they'll grow back really quick, but to get a forest to come back, that'll take much longer. So these burn scars, eventually the landscape will fill in the burn scar. It will heal itself, if you want to use that metaphor. But for the next few years, you can still keep track of these on satellite. And again, the reason we want to do that is that the burn scar can facilitate a flood, and it can act like a fire break. So there you are, the
fascinating tools. So if you're a weather satellite and you're looking at my bowl of vegetables here, you might be able to pick out which one's the pea, which one's the tomato, and which one's the carrot, and apply that information precisely to whatever it is you're working on there. That is really fascinating stuff, that we have that capability from so high above the planet Earth, and Alaska for that matter.
Yep,
Eric?
Eat your veggies.
Yes, definitely. I think I will. I'm hungry. Thanks so much for joining us again, Eric, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. We'll see you right here next time.
Welcome back. Well, yesterday has caught up to and become today, Sunday, February 19th. So now looking at today's satellite imagery, just as I thought, it was a pretty nice day here across the southeast coast. Just a few clouds, scattered showers off the coast with an upper level thing over there, and some clearing here over the eastern Copper River Basin zone location there, not quite at Northway. This band of moisture, slow moving, that's what brought the snow earlier today across Cook Inlet, south central Alaska, and actually continuing, mostly flurries here around the Anchorage area, on up through the interior, back to the Arctic coast, with very cold air mass back to the west associated with the cold upper low, with the trough axis right in through here roughly during the day today, and that's very slowly moving eastward. And northwest winds there on the south side, that brought some clearing to Kodiak Island today with not much in the way of wind. This feature right here, that's a polar low that developed along the ice edge here, which is now south of St. Matthew Island, and that's tracking slowly eastward. So late last night through most of today, the Pribilofs here were in the clear zone, a lot of sunshine between this band to the north and then the other band here that's down along the north side of the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. And out west, you can see the cloud shield associated with the next advancing storm on the last frame. Otherwise, we had the remnants of the older front there stretched out from the central Aleutians, really weakening here. And you can see it's hardly even seems like it exists anymore as this much stronger system spreads high clouds into the western and to the central Aleutians. And rolling that through, once again, things out west are moving quite a bit faster than they are here over the mainland areas, again with that slow moving upper trough. And on today's chart this afternoon, that upper level feature right through here, and at the surface higher pressure, and that usually signifies a pretty cold air mass, and it was with temperatures well below zero, especially this morning, continuing into the afternoon, although Yukon Delta rising up to 5 below to near zero this afternoon. And then farther to the east of the trough where the lift exists and a more southerly flow, we had the snow here ending from south to north with flurries around the Anchorage area, back across the valleys up through the central interior, and again back up to the western Arctic coast, dry on the east side. Sunshine for the Panhandle, high pressure, light winds for the Bering Sea with clouds and snow showers, except for the clearing there over the St. Paul, St. George area and that weakening system out west. Tonight, a pretty strong storm comes northward, and that'll bring gale and storm force winds into the western Aleutians and eventually the southwestern Bering Sea here. As you can see, the tight pressure field associated with that will really kick the winds up, and also warmer air coming northward. Look for rain and snow, changing to mostly rain as it moves in toward the Adak area, but staying a mixed situation back to the west. But that storm will be much more of a wind producer than it will be a precipitation maker. So the wind's definitely the more significant factor with that. Otherwise, high pressure settles in over the southwest part of the state and actually has its domain there of influence extending right up into the Kobuk Valley. This still the position of the upper level trough, a little bit farther east, but not much. So this zone of light snow will continue, turning an arm maybe into the Kenai Peninsula, talking flurries here, a little more extensive and persistent up into the Matanuska Valley around Palmer, and then a swath up to the north and northwest. Now to the central Arctic coast, mostly cloudy, flurries possible there, north of the Alaska Range, 40-mile country on up into the Yukon Flats. Clearing continues, Copper River Basin on down toward the southeast coast. Otherwise, not a lot of wind to speak of, although a little breezy through the passes of the western Alaska Range with the cold high in to the west, which will hold through tomorrow at about 1,021 millibars. So a day tomorrow, much like today here, again across all of the western areas into Bristol Bay. Same thing for Kodiak Island. Winds not too strong, could see some small craft advisories here. Barren Islands, maybe the North Gulf Coast with that low up over Prince William Sound. Now that surface feature, again, holding the flurries in. Again, nothing significant at all, just don't look for a lot of clearing for northern Cook Inlet on up into the Tanana Valley with more persistent band of light snow now from the Koyukuk right onto the central Arctic coast. Clearing eastern Copper River Basin. Lingering snow showers, Prince William Sound, especially near Valdez, possibly Whittier. Probably will be at Whittier too until maybe late tomorrow afternoon. Mostly sunny here, northern southeast coast. This low there to the southeast, that'll circulate some shower activity in the form of snow over toward mostly the Hyder-Stewart area. I don't think it'll get into the Metlakatla-Ketchikan zones there at all, and that would be about it. Otherwise, that intense low, gale, storm force winds associated with the main center back through here. Behind the front, central Aleutians look for a drop-off in the winds tomorrow afternoon. As that front pushes eastward, gales into the Fox Islands, rain, mixed conditions, but it looks like for the most part staying southwest of the Pribilofs there. Could get a little moisture swinging up, but that'd be just some light snow shower activity there, but look for the winds to increase, definitely, especially in the afternoon. Pribilofs probably reaching gale force by tomorrow afternoon. Also an increase there for the western Alaska Peninsula. And again, high pressure holds over the west. And then for Tuesday, finally that trough kicks on out to the east. High pressure settles in over the Koyukuk Valley, Tanana areas, and extends with some clearing all the way down into south central Alaska. Should be a mostly sunny day here for Anchorage, Kenai Peninsula, maybe even Prince William Sound. Variably cloudy from the Copper River Basin up to about Eagle. And it's right about there or northway to Eagle. You have a risk of a few lingering snow showers. Upper level trough here off the southeast coast, keeping the air mass cold enough for whatever falls to be in the form of snow right down to sea level, but nothing heavy expected. And at this point in time, what looks like does fall will be mostly along the coast, maybe some clearing eastward there. Nothing over the Gulf of Alaska, and this front continues to push eastward with minimum gales possible there for Bristol Bay and areas south of Nunivak Island. Occasional rain for the peninsula, mixed over the Bristol Bay zone, mixed ending for the Pribilofs, and then another big storm rolling in right up toward Attu Island. And again, gale and storm force winds associated with that, and an even warmer air mass. So all that precipitation will be in the form of rain, especially with the warm front, all the way over to Atka, not quite reaching Nikolsky until probably Tuesday evening. And then most of this snow condition up here will be off the coast, but you could get some skiffs of snow, say at Point Lay, Barrow, on over to possibly Dead Horse, even Kaktovik, and that's about it. North Slope should be mostly dry, except for where that trough axis is. And going on to temperatures today, 30s for the most part, mid to upper for the southeast coast, although Kawak hit 41, 33 Yakutat, Juneau 38 above, Cordova 31, otherwise mid to upper 20s over all of south central Alaska, Prince William Sound, the Kenai Peninsula. Lower to mid 20s for the Copper River Basin, and then north of the mountains, single numbers there with 5 at Fairbanks, -6 Tanana, 6 below up at Arctic Village, 5 both at Arctic Village and Nanutuvik, well below 0 for the North Slope on out to the Arctic coast, and cold temperatures right into the western interior here with, let's see, that's Deering at -20, and Golovin had -20 this afternoon at 3 p.m. Otherwise, McGrath had 8 below, -9 at Bethel, -1 there at Savunga with mostly clear skies, 11 below at Wales. And on down to the south, upper teens for the Pribilofs. St. Paul dropped to 3 below this morning with the clear skies and light winds. Mid-30s for the Aleutians, teens and 20s the Alaska Peninsula. Lows tonight, anywhere from 20 to 35 below zero. Some areas could be closer to 40 below, but that's generally the coldest part of the state there for the western interior, up onto the north slope. More clouds keep it milder here in the east, down to south central Alaska, Panhandle teens and 20s, 30s for the Aleutians. And moving on to the highs for tomorrow, south and east of the Alaska Range into the teens to mid-20s, 30s for the Panhandle, north of the mountains or to the west, below zero the entire day over just about all the interior, and then 20s for the Pribilofs, lower 40s there for the central Aleutians. Flying weather, IFR there, western Arctic coast, locally into the north slope, otherwise pretty good VFR through the interior. Some lingering marginal stuff for the Susitna Valley, otherwise pretty good right on down the Panhandle. Not bad out here over the Bering Sea. Next system spreading IFR for sure in across Adak, possibly reaching Atka, and then improving tomorrow afternoon as the front pushes eastward, so clearing out at Atka. But conditions going IFR for the eastern Aleutians, marginal for the Pribilofs. Not bad here over the interior with most of the marginal stuff off the coast. Areas of marginal or IFR mostly along the central and western Arctic coast. Anaktuvuk, marginal at times, same forecast for Adigan, Lake Clark, and Merrill. VFR. And for rainy, VFR also. Windy, marginal, becoming VFR. Isabel will be clear. Mentesta looks good. Tanita improving. Kind of that moisture stuck in the area, so IFR gradually improving to marginal conditions, maybe VFR tomorrow afternoon. Portage, same trend, low to start with, VFR in the afternoon. Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels, not much to see here at the surface, right up to near Yakutat, down across Prince of Wales Island. And then those southerly winds ahead of that storm pulling some warmer air, nudging it northward to the central Aleutians. As far as icing goes, a little bit possible up here to the north, but the main area with that storm pushing eastward here across the central Aleutians early tomorrow into the eastern Aleutians tomorrow afternoon and night. And for the winds aloft in advance of that system for tomorrow, ridge right through here, still hanging that trough in over the interior at least through tomorrow, but that's going to kick eastward on Tuesday as this system kind of swings up into the Bering. 9,000 foot winds, not much to speak of here through the interior, pretty light, just 5 to 10 knots. Westerlies 20 to 30 knots there coming out of Kamishak Bay across the Barren Islands into the Gulf. Light and variable for the Panhandle. Big winds out here to the west from Nikolsky, 60 to 70 knotters all the way out to about Kiska Island. And that same pattern also observed at 3,000 feet, 45 to 65 for the Aleutians. Stronger winds back over the southwest Bering Sea, diminishing eastward here to 20 for the Alaska Peninsula. Light and variable over the interior. And also the Panhandle turbulence. Isolated or occasional areas of light to isolated moderate chop there. Kenai Peninsula up along the Alaska Range. Severe coming into the picture out here over the far western Aleutians and southwest Bering, with all of that advancing eastward throughout the day. And let's take a look at the ice edge. 40 miles, strips of ice, 40 miles roughly north or northeast of St. Paul Island now. It's a pretty good jog to the south here over the last week. St. Matthew Island into the heavier stuff now, and pretty good advance to the south here, southwest of Bristol Bay. And for the Marines, northerlies for the Panhandle, just about inside waters and along the coast, but all 10 to 15 knots, 6 to 7 foot seas. Monday for south central Alaska. Tomorrow, variable, Cook Inlet, North 10, Prince William Sound. Small crafts, the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, diminishing into the Gulf. Small crafts are Kodiak. And for the Alaska Peninsula, okay, east winds for Bristol Bay at 10 for tomorrow. 15 knots down the peninsula. Small craft advisories from Castle Cape to Sitkinak. And that's strange. Anyway, this is Tuesday's chart. The front coming through, behind the front, southwest 30. Gales in advance of the front, easterlies 35 for Bristol Bay. And now for the Aleutians, southeast 40, increasing to 40 knots throughout the day as the front pushes eastward. Behind the front, bring it down to 35. Could drop off even lower than that late tomorrow afternoon. but back into the storms here toward the tight gradient associated with the low center, back out to the west, call it north 40 for the far western Aleutians. And then for Tuesday, as that front swings through, the first one weakening, small crafts for the Fox Islands, then the next one bringing full gales into the central Aleutians of 40 knots, south-southeasterlies. Definitely storms here from roughly Kiska Island advancing over toward Adak, not quite reaching it through the afternoon, and then falling back a little bit to the west. For the southwest coast, we've got north to northeast winds right up to St. Lawrence Island at about 10, increasing to 20, maybe 25 for St. Matthew Island, and winds increasing to 35 knots for the Pribilofs in the afternoon with building seas. And then for Tuesday, the front pushes through, southwest 30, 13-foot seas for St. Paul and St. George, northeast 30 to 40 there with the strongest winds in the St. Matthew Island zone, and 35-knot winds moving in toward Kuskokwim Bay. Arctic coast, east 10 to 15 knots on the east side, light winds here mostly from the north, all the way down to Wales there, maybe 15 knots there for the Chukchi Sea. And then on Tuesday, northerlies 10 to 15 here from Wales to Cape Beaufort. Northwest for the western central coast, westerlies on the light side, maybe up to 15 knots toward Demarcation Point. For tonight, again, slow-moving upper-level trough. Surface high pressure means cold temperatures out here tonight. Areas of snow persisting, northern Cook Inlet, especially Palmer, Matt Valley, northward into the central interior. Otherwise, pretty nice over the Panhandle, and not bad here in advance of the storm for the eastern Aleutians. Gales and storm force winds, gusts of 70 miles per hour coming in with that system tonight and tomorrow, mostly holding back to the west there, the front pushing eastward, bringing gales to the Fox Islands. And then clearing out now and cold over the interior.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.